Other questions or comments on this item?
Mr. Chairman,
Mrs. Smith.
I have a question on the workman's comp at Pocahontas Elementary. You had a total of 13 claims that were placed. It said 5 for students, 3 slip falling outside, 5 students, and I was assuming that was inside the building maybe, or I don't know, I was a little confused on that, because then it said 3 slips and falls inside and 3 slips and falls outside. But that only totals 11, but you listed 13 worker compensation claims.
Yeah.
Do you follow me?
Yeah, waiting to see. We may have to track that down and get back to you, Ms. Smith, on that answer.
Do you want me to offer a suggestion?
Sure.
What could it have been? Their falls?
Dr. Jones.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Discuss anything associated with individual employees in open session.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. It could be staff members that we just didn't account for in that total number. So we'll be happy to look into that and get back to you.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry.
All right. Other questions or comments?
I apologize for that mistake. Sorry.
No, ma'am. Other questions or comments?
Okay, next item, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is to consider approval of price change for our 2020-2021 school lunch and breakfast prices. Federal regulations stipulate the average for paid lunches is less than $3.09. It must be either increased or covers the distance. We are at $2.84, so we're 25 cents below the requirement. So it's not necessary to increase, but we are recommending that breakfast prices remain at $1.50. Lunch prices for grades K-8 increase from $2.80 to $2.90, and for grades 9 through 12 to increase from $2.90 to $3. And this is due on July 1st. And we did present this as information in May.
All right, is there discussion about this item?
Mr. Chairman, this is Mr. Cole. I'll make a motion. We approve the lunch price increase as presented.
Mrs. Ayers seconds.
All right, we have a motion from Mr. Cole, seconded by Mrs. Ayers. All in favor of Mr. Cole?
Aye.
Mrs. Smith?
Aye.
Mrs. Ayers?
Aye.
Mrs. Emel?
Aye.
Ms. Emel, I'm sorry, I couldn't tell it. You voted aye? Yes?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Motion carries 5-0. All right, next item, Dr. Jones.
Yeah, the next item is just information that we will be conducting our audit as we do every year, and we're required by this audit form to notice the board that we are auditing them, and if there are inquiries from board members and key staff, that they can use the attached letter to review that, and to there's a email address there if there are inquiries or questions that board members have as part of the audit.
All right, this is just information for us today.
Yep.
All right. Any questions about this before we move on?
I'm sorry.
No, sir, it's all right. Any questions about this? All right, thank you, Dr. Jones.
Yeah, and the next item, staff was unclear about whether the board's intent was to meet on the 23rd or not, given this meeting on the 16th. So we went ahead and included fiscal year-end budget amendments and items that we would typically do at that last meeting in June. So that's why this item's on here now, and certainly we could talk about that later when we talk about board meeting dates. But fiscal year budget amendment is included, and Mr. Johns is here to answer any questions. I'll pull up the PDF so that you can see it. We did move some money out of operation and maintenance and out of transportation to cover those variances. And Mr. Johns, is there anything else that you'd like to share with the board? I know we lost him earlier.
Dr. Jones, is there any benefit to doing this next week in terms of being closer to the end of your fiscal year, or do you want to go ahead and handle it tonight? What is your preference?
I think we could easily handle it tonight. We're prepared to, and it's been completed.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right. So, and are you prepared to answer questions with Mr. Johns if he's not on the line?
Yes.
Not available. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Questions for Dr. Jones?
It went away.
Oh,
I'm sorry, Ms. Smith.
It went away.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Do we see it back up?
you don't see it anymore?
No.
Okay.
Not the PDF.
Oh, the PDF. I'm sorry.
The money out of operations and maintenance and out of transportation to cover those variances. And Mr. Johns, is there anything else that you'd like to share with the board?
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Johns. We're just waiting to see if the board has any questions.
Are there questions for Dr. Jones or Mr. Johns?
We handle it tonight. We're prepared to, and it's been completed. Okay. All right, very good. All right, so are you prepared to answer questions with Mr. Johns?
Dr. Jones, we seem to, I am at least having some kind of echo.
Yeah, I'm gonna mute Mr. Johns. It's coming from him.
Okay. All right.
Sorry, Larry.
All right. So any questions or comments for either Dr. Jones or Mr. Johns at this point about item H?
No.
Mr. Chairman, this is Mr. Cole. This is a transfer that we anticipated with the additional expenses in technology. I'm prepared to make a motion to approve it if there are no other comments from board.
All right. All right. Hearing none, Mr. Cole, do you want to proceed?
Yes, sir. I'll make a motion. We approve the $250,000 transfer to the technology line item as presented.
All right. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it, Mrs. Email.
All right. Mr. Cole's motion. Mrs. Emel has seconded it. All in favor, Mr. Cole?
Aye.
Mrs. Smith?
Aye.
Mrs. Ayers?
Aye.
Mrs. Emel?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries 5-0. Next item, Dr. Jones.
Yeah, this is a request for a religious exemption. Recommend that the school board approve the request for release for compulsory attendance of student case RE 2021-01 based on bona fide religious belief.
All right, is there a motion regarding this item?
I'll make a motion to accept.
We have a motion from Mrs. Ayers. Is there a second?
Mrs. Email will second it.
All right, motion from Mrs. Ayers, second from Mrs. Emel. Mr. Cole?
Aye.
Mrs. Smith?
Aye.
Mrs. Ayers?
Aye.
Mrs. Emel?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries 5-0. Next item, Dr. Jones.
Yes, this is a resolution that the board should consider. This came from the Virginia School Board Association as a template in reaction to recent events across our country to reaffirm the county's stance towards equity and inclusion and against racism. The board has reviewed this and given feedbacks, and we've tried to incorporate as much of that feedback or all the feedback that we could to make this more a resolution about Powhatan County schools. So I am offering it to the board for their consideration at this time.
All right, so this is a draft resolution for the board to consider this evening. Is there comment, or how would you like to proceed?
Mr. Chairman,
Mrs. Emel.
I am happy to support this. What is happening in our state, in our world today, I think it's just very important that we go ahead and let everybody know the school board's position as well as our staff, and that we try to do this every day, but we do have some learning and changing to do as well, and I fully support this.
All right, are there other comments or questions?
Mrs. Smith here. I want to second just what she said. I think that from the template that was written and this final paper is very, very nicely expressed. So for all those that inputted and worked on this, thank you very much. But I think it's a very good document.
All right, other questions or comments?
I agree with Ms. Emall and Ms. Smith.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Ayers. Any other questions or comments?
All right, well, I'll make a motion if there are no more.
All right, Mrs. Emel?
I'll make a motion that we pass the Powhatan County Public Schools anti-racism resolution.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Mrs. Ayers will second.
All right, motion from Mrs. Emel, seconded by Mrs. Ayers. Mr. Cole,
Aye.
Mrs. Smith,
Aye.
Mrs. Ayers,
Aye.
Mrs. Emel.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries 5-0 to pass the resolution as presented. Dr. Jones, just before you leave this item, as is our practice, the resolution will be signed by all 5 members. So can you share with us by email, perhaps tomorrow, some kind of idea on how we can all stop by and sign it, work out some times?
Yeah, we're open. PLC is open regular business hours, 8 to 4:30, Monday through Thursday. If it's easier for us to meet you somewhere else to have it signed, just contact Ms. Hockaday and we'll get that done next few days.
All right, thank you for sharing that with everybody. All right, next item, Dr. Jones.
Yeah, next item is to adopt the parent policy for the 2020-2021 school year. This is a requirement for us to receive Title I funding. We have to review the parent policy each year. The signature page is kept on file to document this review. Our Title I Advisory Committee reviewed the policy and it was recommended to change the word from board to division where appropriate, but otherwise it is as it has been in the past. That was the only change, I believe, that was made.
All right, so fairly minimal changes. Any discussion regarding this document? All right, hearing none, is there a motion?
Mrs. Ayers will make a motion to accept.
All right, Mrs. Ayers has made a motion. Is there a second?
Mr. Cole will
I will
second.
second.
All right, I think Mr. Cole spoke first, so Mrs.
Go
Ayers
ahead.
made the motion. Mr. Cole seconded the motion. So Mr. Cole,
Aye.
Mrs. Smith,
Aye.
Mrs. Ayers,
Aye.
Mrs. Emel.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion carries 5-0. Next item, Dr. Jones, is the potential July meeting date, item L. And what I would say is I think we need to do a couple of things under this item. The first is we need to select some dates in July. And I would ask the board if we can, I think we need to go ahead and pick 2 dates. We may not need them both. But I would rather ask you to go ahead and block them out on your calendar if that's possible. And then certainly if we don't need them, we can always, remove it. Also, I would ask you, we need to have some discussion about what you would like that meeting to look like in terms of, are we going to continue to do this virtually? Or are we going to go back to some sort of meeting in keeping with phase 2 of the governor's reopening plan that would permit us to meet have some limited meetings in person. And then the final item that I'd like to have some discussion with you about is just simply that I did ask Dr. Jones to clarify, we need to have at least a closed session meeting. And one of our requirements is to perform is to do an evaluation. And we do need to go ahead and get that done. And I just think that's going to be very challenging to do without being in closed session together to discuss it. So those are a couple of things that are there. And we can certainly defer that last item for a while, but I did just want to bring it to everybody's attention that we are in June at this point and we need to get our evaluation done. So first off, I guess I would ask if we can talk about some meeting dates for July. We could simply stick to perhaps the second and fourth Tuesdays, if that's the preference, or whatever would suit everyone.
Mr. Chairman,
Mrs. Emel.
I'd like to suggest that that we make our meeting date, the first meeting date, shortly after the 29th, because that's when the Board of Supervisors are going to know the budget. So I'm suggesting that we meet either the next evening, the 30th, or the first, or second of that week to discuss if we have work to do. And then, of course, if we don't and we're fully funded, then we could, unless there's other business that we need to discuss.
I have no problem with that. I just tried to stay away from that week because it's a holiday week, and I just made an assumption if people are traveling for vacation or other things, it would probably be that week. But I'm open to whatever the pleasure of the board is.
Well, perhaps then making it the 30th earlier in the week and making it on the 30th. And again, it's only because I'm feeling like if we have to do some decisions regarding our budget, it's better to get busy and get started and quit leaving, so we're not leaving people hanging, our employees and our staff.
Well, let me ask Dr. Jones this question. So Dr. Jones, if they vote on a budget on the 29th, and that's when you learn what is in that budget in terms of what it will hold for us, I mean, will you be able to talk to us and give us information to work with on the 30th?
No, we wouldn't have information ready by that point. The unresolved thing is we'll also, I hope they clarify about the savings and what we have access to, because if we have access to those savings, then it certainly makes covering any shortfall in what they appropriate or approve in our budget a lot easier to deal with. So, but to answer your question, I think it would be we would need some more time. The other, I understand Ms. Emel's point about knowing sooner rather than later, but we'll get information out to you as quickly as possible. We also have the second meeting of the task force on July 8th. So we would like to have some time after that meeting to be able to pull stuff together to present to the board as well. Just to throw that out there.
So if we met on July 7th, Dr. Jones, would you at that point be able to talk to us about the budget and what the impact will be from that would perhaps give you time to do some analysis?
Yeah, we should be able to do that. If we meet virtually, I'll be able to do that. I'm on vacation that week.
Yeah, I recognize July 4th, either week before or after that is going to be tough for people if they've got a vacation planned. So, my intent was to schedule 2 meetings a month of July, so we could look at the information that the task force is going to present at the second meeting, and if that's how it works out, and we could do the first on the budget. But that's just a thought, Mrs. Emel.
Yes, that's what the first one I feel like should be just on the budget. If we are not funded our full amount, then we have decisions we need to start making.
Okay. So what?
But if we are funded, then we'll cancel it and then just go for the second half of the month.
All right. So I think just to move this along a little bit, then I think the spirit of what we're talking about is something like the 7th and 21st. So I'll just put that out to everybody. Does that seem reasonable? And does anyone know that that's going to cause a problem for them right now with their plans?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to be around. It doesn't make a difference to me, but I want Dr. Jones to have time to do what he needs to do before we meet. Right. And I'd like for that committee to meet before we meet too. Just, if we can do 2 things at one time, I would prefer the 14th and the 28th.
I believe me too.
That I think that just, I think that gives people time to look at it a little bit. We will know, and staff will know that one way or the other whether the budget has been funded or not on the 29th. And they'll know we have to make some cuts. And I want those cuts to be made very deliberately and with a lot of careful thought. So we certainly can get some indication from Dr. Jones and staff about what he's thinking about before that meeting on the 14th. And I think it'd be good if the public kind of knew what some of those things we were thinking about were too, so everybody's got a chance to kind of look at that and breathe and reflect on it a little bit. So that's my suggestion. I can live with either one. But
I don't know if it was Ms. Smith or Mrs. Ayers. Somebody spoke at some point during your comments. And
Sorry, that was me. I agree with those dates.
Ms. Ayers.
you agree
Ms.
with
Ayers.
Ms. Ayers? You agree with the 14th and 28th? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, for the same reasons that Mr. Cole was stating.
Okay, Ms. Smith, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm in agreement with the 14th and the 28th because I think Dr. Jones needs a vacation without having to Zoom in with us.
And Dr. Jones is probably in agreement with your comments too.
No comment.
Oh, come on.
All right, so that's
You'll miss us, Dr. Jones, but please go have a vacation without us.
all right. So and very kind of you, Ms. Smith. So I will say to you that I think I'm feeling the same the same eagerness to get started that Ms. Emil is. But I can agree. I can understand the comments from Mrs. Ayers and Ms. Smith and Mr. Cole. So based on that, what I would suggest is let's do the 14th and 28th, and we will go ahead and schedule those as special. They're effectively special meetings. They're not scheduled meetings at this point. So Dr. Jones, if you would begin to have those dates. The next question is how we want to conduct them.
Yeah.
So what is the pleasure of the board in terms of how we do those meetings? We have a meeting on the 23rd, which is next Tuesday. We have these two meetings, and I would like to go ahead and advertise them to the public in the manner in which we intend to conduct them. So is it the pleasure of the board to continue on virtually like this, or would you rather come back together? And I would just ask you too, if we do them all virtually, at some point we are going to need to do the closed session. So just give me your thoughts on that.
Mr. Chairman, could you clarify to me why we're going to meet on the 23rd if we did our budget amendment tonight?
Well, that's a good point, Mr. Cole. I mean, we don't have an action item to take up other than some of the ones that we've tasked Dr. Jones with tonight.
None of those are time sensitive.
Policies, I guess we could push down, later, but that's an excellent point.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, and we did scramble to make sure that we had everything in place, not knowing what the board wanted to do since the meeting was the week before, and we met last week. So we wouldn't have additional information that would need to be done. And certainly those policies, like I said, we designed those to be pushed to January. So if that's the board's pleasure, we would be in agreement.
Well, we are very dependent on the Board of Supervisors now in terms of their decision on the 29th.
Right.
That really is going to drive the rest of our work, at least for the next several weeks. So I have no problem with that. Are there any members that, is there any member that would feel strongly we need to meet on the 23rd? I hear none. So with that said, Dr. Jones,
we'll cancel the meeting on the 23rd and schedule on the 14th and the 28th.
All right, but let's go ahead and talk about how we're doing that. We need to have a decision. Are we going to do this virtually, or do we want to come back together? And let's at least do the July meetings. Let's decide how we're going to do those. Do we want to do them virtually?
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Ayers.
it would be my recommendation that we stay virtual on the 14th. And then on the 28th, since we do need to have a closed session, perhaps we could meet at the Landmark Center.
Okay.
Wearing masks.
I have no problem with that. Is there other questions or other thoughts about that? Is that how we'd like to do this?
Mr. Chairman,
Mrs. Emil.
so if our budget is funded fully, then we won't need to meet on July 14th?
Oh.
Well, the way that I took it was if we're not going to meet on the 23rd of June, we're going to meet on the 14th of July. But I think we're really deciding this right now, Ms. Emil. So if you have
Okay. Well,
let us know.
I'm confused on what we're going to cover. Okay. From what I gather, there's nothing for us to cover next week. So I understand why we're going to cancel that meeting.
Right.
I thought we were only going to have the first meeting of the month in July if our budget wasn't funded fully.
Well, and I guess my answer to that would be that I think if our budget is funded fully, I think we probably need to have one meeting and be done in the month of July, unless Dr. Jones has other items. So go ahead.
I would agree. I think, yeah, I'm sorry. I think we'll be ready by the 14th to present the information from the task force meetings and work. So, you know, if that's the case, then the board could look at canceling the meeting on the 28th if needed.
Right, and I think whatever we do, Mrs. Emil, to speak to Mrs. Ayers' suggestion, if we do one meeting in July, I think we need to do it on a date where we're comfortable trying to get the closed session done. It is just a thought. So, and if we need to push that back, if we're fully funded, I think we should be able to push it back without that being a problem.
Okay, so you're saying we're going to plan on meeting the 14th and the 28th.
Yes.
And the 14th.
I think right now, Mrs. Emil, what I would say is plan to meet on the 14th and 28th. And what we do is going to be decided on the 29th by the Board of Supervisors and their decision. Really, their budget decision is going to drive what happens with our meetings in July in terms of how many we need to have and what we cover.
I agree with you, Mr. Chairman. There was a lot of confusion last week and this week about our meeting tonight. I just want to understand so that, you know, when we're advertising to our constituents, that we're not saying, okay, it's 5 o'clock or it's 6 o'clock and etc.
I agree with you completely. And that's what I want to accomplish before we adjourn this meeting tonight, is make sure that what we put on our website is what we're going to do. And if there was confusion, again, that certainly is not the intent. So, I think what I've heard presented, which seems very logical, is to defer to the 14th for the first meeting that we're going to schedule. And that gives Dr. Jones and his staff time to fully analyze whatever decision the Board of Supervisors make. We would also be scheduling the 28th. What Mrs. Ayers, I believe, had suggested is we advertise the 14th as a virtual meeting and the 28th as a meeting at Landmark Center. And that is what we would put out. And certainly we could make some changes to that if we need to, based on what happens on the 29th.
Mr. Chairman, only other comment would be we should go ahead and put into the agenda on the 14th in a closed session in case we need it.
I agree.
That way, if we have something that he really needs to hire somebody or something else at that point, we could do that. If we don't need it, then we could cancel it. But you know, so that'd be my only other suggestion. But I do agree with your statement about the 14th virtual, 28th in person.
Right, and Dr. Jones, I think he mentioned this earlier, and I just would say it again that he got clarification from our attorney maybe today or maybe yesterday, but certainly very recently, that we do have the ability to do closed session within the provisions that exist in the budget bill. So we couldn't, while it wasn't ready to do tonight, on the 14th, we could do the closed session electronically if we need to. So we can accomplish a closed session on the 14th if we don't need to have a meeting on the 28th.
Right.
I agree. If we put it in there, we'll have it if we need it. So that's a great idea.
So 6 o'clock on the 14th?
That's fine with me. And Mrs. Ayers or someone had a comment.
I did. I just said, Mr. Chairman, if we're going to be, when did you say the evaluation would be done? On the 14th or the next meeting?
Well, I mean, we have not, you know, obviously we haven't had a closed session in quite a while. So we've got to have some discussion about it. Generally, it takes us more than one meeting. So I think if we could begin the discussion on whatever this first meeting is, maybe we can get an idea what the path forward looks like.
Okay, because I was thinking that if we're going to do a virtual closed session, then I guess that's fine, but I just have never done it. So I don't know how that would work. I was thinking if we're going to do closed session, maybe we should meet in person, both meetings, to have the ability to have closed session in person.
Yeah, Ms. Ayers, I agree. I've never done a virtual closed session either. So that was the advice from our attorney, the school board. Well, I guess that's our attorney. The advice from our attorney was that we are permitted to do that. So how we do it, I can't tell you right now, but I'm sure we'll have the guidance in place so we can do it properly by that date.
Mr. Chairman, we have done a virtual closed meeting with the Appomattox Regional Grammar School.
Yes, sir.
It's not, it's just like any other Zoom meeting. Everybody's on it except us.
Okay.
We certainly could talk about how we're going to start the evaluation process then, and then really do more of it the next week. I think you can lay the foundation on the 14th, and then on the 28th we can do it. If we have that meeting, we can do more of the evaluation then.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Cole, for your comment. My concern is just obviously because it is closed session and governed, I just want to make sure we do it properly. But we want to make sure that we follow all of the requirements. I do. So.
Right.
All right. So do we generally have agreement then that we're going to schedule 2 special meetings? We will schedule them 14th and 28th. 14th is virtual. 28th is going to be advertised as being at the Landmark Center, and those will be 2 dates. And we will know on the 29th some guidance about how we move forward with them. Is that the agreement? I know we're not voting on this, but does anybody have concerns about what I've just presented?
Mr. Chairman, the meeting on the 28th then, depending on what the phase we're in, we may be in 3, I don't know. So the public still is not permitted to attend?
I don't know what phase we would be in at that point.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't.
I know, but what I'm just trying to say is I just want to make sure that we're not, well, I guess we'll just wait and see until at the time.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. And what I would ask staff to do is just research that for us and make sure that whatever we do on that date is completely consistent with all the appropriate guidelines.
Yes, and I just don't want them there unless they have to be. I mean, they could still come virtually. I just don't want our staff exposed unnecessarily, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, ma'am, I understand.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Is that Ms. Smith? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes.
And our time for meeting will be 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock.
I would prefer 6 o'clock for those 2 special meetings, if that's okay with everybody.
It's fine with me.
Okay.
So we decide.
I'm sorry, Ms. Smith.
I said, just so we decide.
Okay, 6 o'clock.
Okay.
All right. So Dr. Jones, does that give you what you need to advertise?
Yep.
On our
Thank you very much.
All right.
We will get it on the calendars and cancel the meeting next week and get those 2 on the calendars for 6 o'clock. And we'll conduct the one on the 14th via Zoom like we've been doing.
All right. Thank you, sir.
A session put in case we need it, and we'll set a breakout room so that we can do it.
All right. And can you get us the language for that closed session meeting?
Yep.
Perhaps it's the same language, but whatever we need in terms of the closed session, if we do it virtually on the 14th, to make sure we're in line with code requirements. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Any further discussion about the meetings upcoming?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Cole, I'm concerned about following our policy for public comment. And I'm not going to belabor this tonight, but I am, as one board member, I do not think it's appropriate to take comments from unsigned emails or from anonymous. Not in a public meeting anyway. If somebody wants to send me something anonymously, that's up to them. But I have some real concerns about that. I also think that we ought to, I love the public comment, but I'm also concerned about when it goes over, when it takes you 5 minutes to read a letter. We're going to suspend the public comment period, public comment regulations for online comment. It's just something we need to think about. We don't have to decide on it tonight, but do those public comments, do each one of them need to be read? I mean, or do they become like our minutes? That is something for us to think about. And maybe that's something we can think about as we move into our next meeting. How long we stay in phase 2 is anybody's guess at this point. We hope that we'll be out of it fairly soon, but we'll see. I mean, based on what's happening around the country, when people go out of phase 2 into phase 3, cases go up. So let's hope that doesn't happen here.
Well, we are at this point still on item L, which is potential July meeting dates. What we're talking about is how to manage those meetings, and I think, at least from my perspective, we're still we're figuring some of this stuff out as we go.
I agree.
In terms of how we're managing some of these things. I don't have a problem if that's the desire of the board, not to read comments that have no name on them. I just want to make sure. I mean, we've done that, but we certainly can publicly say right now that we're not going to do it in the future, and I don't have a problem with that if that's the will of the board. We ask the people commenting to provide their first and last name. So is that how the board would like to handle this moving forward?
Mrs. Smith says yes, Mr. Chairman.
All right, I don't think we need to, but does anybody have a concern? If not, we're going to handle it that way. And we're saying that very publicly right now, that if Dr. Jones receives comments that where the individual, and our instructions say that they should provide first and last name, if they don't do that, that we're not going to read the public comment. Does anybody have a concern with that?
No, and their address.
I don't think we're requiring address in the instructions that we're providing right now.
Oh, for the online.
I mean, all we say is that they're a resident of Powhatan County, I believe.
Yeah, it just says first and last name.
Okay, I apologize. I forget that we're Zooming now.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Does anybody have a concern?
Nope.
Okay. All right. So, Dr. Jones, then that's what we would ask staff to do. Make us aware that you receive them that are anonymous, please. But we won't ask you to read them to us, and we'll just remind everybody, please, if you would, in your instructions, that we need first and last name. And if you receive them anonymously, if there's some way that you can reply, if it's by email, please reply back to the sender and ask them to identify themselves so we can get as much participation as possible.
Okay.
Okay. Yep. Any other thoughts from the board on how the meetings will be conducted in that regard? All right. All right. Next item on the agenda then is simply board comments. So what we'll do is start with Mr. Cole.
I don't have anything at this point. We're at the mercy of the board in terms of of knowing what the budget's going to be, and we look forward to hearing that information. We hope it's good news. So I want to thank everybody for what they've done at this point in the year, and hope that they're getting some time off, at least the teachers at this point. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cole. Mrs. Smith.
Well, first of all, I would like to say that there was much thought and many feelings expressed in the comments that were in our first public comment period. And I just wanted to thank everyone who took the time to sit down and write them. It was, I was very impressed with their passion and their concerns. And I think that speaks well of the citizens in our county and how they support this school system. Secondly, I hope that the mess that we had figuring out this meeting doesn't have, and the time and everything, all the particulars about it, doesn't kind of happen again. I was not happy to find a conversation email when I got back yesterday evening that 3 people had decided all the particulars about this meeting. So I feel like that my 2 cents is imperative that I put it in to represent District 2 people. So please make sure that you hear from everyone before you make a board decision. And the third thing I have on my mind and on my heart is this school money. And I really and truly hope that there is some way to put the brakes on this money going back to the county. I don't know if it is. The horse may be out of the barn, I don't know, so to speak. But if there is any way for us to hold on to it, I'm feeling uneasy about this budget thing. And that's the thoughts bring me to this conclusion about this money. And then one more thing is, I still think that Powhatan County should write a petition and send it to the governor and Dr. Lane and get as many people as possible to sign it, saying that they support it, because there is power in the numbers. I agree with your thought on the Board of Supervisors and School Board coming up with something, but we're just 10 people, you know, and if you've got thousands signatures on a petition, that carries more weight. It's more forceful, I think. And with that, I'm done. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Smith. Mrs. Ayers.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just a few comments, because I'm tired and I'm having a hard time speaking and breathing. Just to thank everybody for their comments tonight. Like Ms. Smith said, that it does reflect what a wonderful community we live in and how passionate people are about education and having their students in school. And I hope the Board of Supervisors saw the passion that all of these people have wanting their children in school, and will fully fund our budget. The other comment that I have at this point is to just request that, I don't know if I missed it or if the board members didn't get it, but I haven't seen the survey. I did not get the survey unless I missed it.
It's in the letter that that I sent you. It's embedded in that, but we can send you a direct link to it.
I'm asking, tell me what letter, because maybe I did miss it in our weekly updates. Is that where it was?
Can't remember exactly when I sent you, but I sent you the letter that we were going to send to parents before we sent it to parents.
I do remember now, and I just didn't open it. So I will certainly, I apologize for that, because I do remember the letter, and I guess I just forgot to open the attachment. So thank you. I will go back and do that.
Okay. I'm happy to resend or to send the direct link if anybody needs it.
Please do.
Yep.
Please.
Will do.
All right, Mrs. Emel.
Yes.
Ms. Ayers, I'm sorry. Were you finished, Ms. Ayers?
I am finished. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mrs. Emel.
Okay. All right. I'd like to start with, if I could, I'd like to know if we have soap dispensers installed next to every sink, if we've had an opportunity to do that yet.
Yes, that's been done, and we're also purchasing new hand dryers for the middle and the high school that will be more effective in drying hands at the middle and the high school level. Okay, and were we going to go to paper towels or? No, we decided not to go to paper towels just because of the mess that they can cause in a secondary bathroom. So that's why we purchased that, and that money will be reimbursable through CARES Act. Okay. Oh, and so the soap dispensers, what I was meaning is my request, I believe it was a couple meetings ago. Yep, the art classrooms, I believe at the high school. Yes, ma'am, those have been done. Great. And then I appreciate that. And then are we going to also be putting a station or a pump or something at the entrance of all our schools as well? Yeah, Dr. Tibbs has been working on ordering those supplies and signage and all of that. So we'll be prepared when we reopen school. And we have some of those now for the public when they come into the building. Right. Thank you. I'd like to also request communication going out from our staff to be copied on, by the central office staff. Many of them already do, and I thank them. But for those that don't, could they start doing that, please? On all communication? Well, you know how they copy us, and to just let us know what is going on. That's okay. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you. I wanted to say thank you to all the teachers and the administration and the staff that were involved in giving up their Saturday for the senior parade.
to send those well-deserving seniors off. They were so happy. Even the moms in the cars, you could just tell. Even some of the fathers, you could see their emotion of how much they appreciated all of our people taking time to acknowledge their kids, because it's been so hard. And the extra mile that everybody went to, I think it was very, very well received. I've even heard some people say that maybe this could be a tradition. It was so well received. They liked it so much. So thank you to all of our people for that. Okay, also, I don't know if you're aware, the Powhatan Middle School FFA Soils team was recognized for their achievements tonight, virtually, for their achievements in the state CDE first place and high individuals. So I wanted to give them their shout out. And my last thing here, there seems to be some misunderstanding about the school board member salary that I would like to clear up. So for the record, Mrs. Hockaday, if you would put in the minutes, and I would be happy to send you an email. As a school board member, I do not make over $100,000 a year. I make $400 a month, which is $4,800 a year. At the central office, we do have 9 employees that do make over $100,000 a year. And I did get the information that I requested from the last meeting about the daily central office furlough amount. And that is $10,379.31, which includes all school board members' salaries. And as I said at the last Thursday night's meeting, I expect to have my $20 a day going towards the furlough if that's what we decide. So I just wanted to get that cleared up. Thank you. And then the last thing, thank you all for those that are attending via Zoom and YouTube, and all the wonderful public comments, letting us know how you feel, and so we can know which direction you want us to go in. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Emel. So I guess I will just be brief. I want to echo what I've heard in terms of thanking the public. You know, we often talk about our desire to have public comment, public participation, to know how the public feels about a particular issue. And I think that there's lots and lots of engagement on this issue, and that's a great thing. And was it 23 pages, I think, of comments in our first public comment period, which is fantastic. So I would just encourage the parents to continue to be engage with your other elected officials as well, and share with them your thoughts about this issue at the state level and at the local level. So just want to encourage the parents to do that. And I would echo Mrs. Emel's comments about the graduation parade. I thought that was a wonderful thing, and I saw so many smiling faces, and it seemed like the parents particularly, certainly the graduates, but the parents and the friends as well, particularly enjoyed that. And you know, as you waved at people kind of riding by, it was just a nice event. I got to see a lot of people I hadn't seen in a while personally, and I think that's a nice idea that Ms. Emel talked about. I'm not sure that wouldn't be a good event to have in the future as we go forward. It was kind of special and certainly different. So whoever thought that idea up, I commend them for it. It was very well done. So, and that's what I have. Dr. Jones.
I don't have any additional comments, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so that takes us to our second public comment period of the evening. So in accordance with school board policies BDDH and KD, any resident of Powhatan County may address the board during public comment. Since we are now conducting virtual meetings, citizens are invited to address the board through public chat using Zoom, or they may email the school board clerk, Linda Hockaday, linda.hockaday@powhatan.k12.va.us in advance. Please address your comments to the board as a whole, not to individual board members. And please begin by indicating your first and last name before typing your question or concern to the board. Each individual is allowed 1 minute to address their request to the board and will be provided enough time to submit their request. The board will not respond or address issues raised by citizens during the course of public comment, and citizens are reminded the board chair is authorized to stop or remove any request during the chat feature which uses vulgar, disruptive, or threatening language. Your acceptance and adherence to these guidelines is greatly appreciated. The public comment period is open at this point. So Dr. Jones, what do you have at this point in public comment?
We've got one email and one chat. I could go ahead and start on the email if you like and give people opportunity if they want to add more.
Yeah, please. And before you read that again, as a reminder, if you're going to type in public comment here with the chat feature, please make sure you identify yourself by first and last name, but also we're going to give you every effort to get your chat completed while we're reading these, but please start now and share with us your thoughts. So Dr. Jones.
Yeah, the email we received is from a William Tate, 4371 Worsham Road. And Mr. Tate says, hello, I have two children that attend Powhatan County Public Schools. For the 2020-21 school year, I will have a 7th grader and a 9th grader. To say that distance learning was not a success would be a gross understatement. Learning was replaced with frustration, yelling and arguing because I am not a school teacher, are not conducive to a positive learning environment or the ability to learn and see progression at all. School will not be a burden for my child. I'm a single father trying to raise 2 kids on my own. My son has an attention issue that has been brought up multiple times to his teachers. They have a hard time getting him to focus. So how do you expect me to get him to focus when I'm at work all day? I don't want to come home after working all day to spend all afternoon and night trying to get their schoolwork completed. This model of distance learning was not successful. These children need to be in school 5 days a week. They need to have in-person learning so their teachers can help accommodate all the various ways kids learn. Learning is not a one-size-fits-all thing, as I think we have seen from the distance learning fiasco. Children need the social and emotional connections of seeing their teachers and peers. Sometimes the approval of a teacher may be the only good thing in a child's day or the only positive connection they have. Lastly, as for COVID-19, it has been shown that this is not an illness for children. Yes, it affects some, but it is mild, and the majority recover quickly, very similar to the flu. I'm sure we can recall times when the flu was causing 5 to 10 children to be absent from a class. Schools were not shut down, nor were children forced to wear masks. Yes, someone will probably get COVID-19 once schools open, but if you're choosing to send your child to school, you're already aware of that risk, just as you are aware that they can get the flu at school or the grocery store. Furthermore, how can the governor do press conferences and go mingle with people at Virginia Beach with no mask and thousands of protesters in the streets with no rise in COVID-19 cases? Please find a solution to allow our children to attend school 5 days a week. And that was that comment. And then the only other comment that I have at this point is from a Kiera Taylor. Simply says, will there still be a risk if we sign a waiver? And that is all that I have at this time, Mr. Chairman.
All right, no other emails?
No, sir.
All right, so with that, then we'll bring public comment period to a close. That takes us to the end of the agenda. Next item is adjournment. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I move we close out this meeting.
I second it. Ms. Smith says she agrees.
All right, Ms. Engel and Ms. Smith, all in favor, please respond with aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
No opposition. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much for your time.